Is Patrick Mahomes the GOAT if he wins his third Super Bowl? I don't think so. We'll explain why on today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll.
Baby.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert for Locked On Titans, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy, local expert for Locked On Cardinals. It is Super Bowl week, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a ton of Super Bowl content for you on today's show. Before we get into it, I do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. And for two teams, it's still Crossover Thursday, which is also brought to you by Prize Picks. But Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Super Bowl week, we're talking the impact on both of the quarterbacks in this game. If they win, who are the best non-quarterbacks in this matchup? And of course, we will give our Super Bowl predictions at the end of the show. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first to listen each and every day. It's Locked On. It's your team every day. All right, Alex, with that being said, I know how I feel about this. I've kind of done the thought exercise in my head of who I would rank where, but if Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl, it'll be his third Super Bowl within like 7 years. He's obviously going to be way up at the top at all the statistical marks by the time he finishes, just with the nature of the way the game is played and his talent. He'll probably have 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Do you think that he could actually make a claim to being the GOAT already?
No, but there's a spectrum to that argument, which we've had maybe 3 times in the history of football, 5 times in the history of football. Maybe 5, 7, whatever with the other guys. But this is the interesting part. You've got like Tom Brady, Joe Montana, whatever you want to say. Okay, it's probably Tom Brady. It's probably Tom Brady. That's fine. We don't have to get in that disagreement right now. Okay, but what he will do is supplant Drew Brees, supplant Aaron Rodgers, supplant Big Ben, supplant Phillip Rivers, even though Phillip Rivers wasn't at that level. And it's not so much about Drew Brees shattered everything. He took passing to a completely different level at a time where it wasn't really done like that. During the Marcus Colson, Devery Henderson years, with Deuce McAllister and like Reggie Bush and Darren Sproles, like it was different. Okay. Yeah. And he only won 1, and he had chances to win a lot more, but he didn't. The fact that Patrick Mahomes wins these Super Bowls had Tyreek Hill. Okay, sure, has Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce wasn't Travis Kelce until Patrick Mahomes got there, until Andy Reid got there, okay? He was a good tight end who went on a dating show for Kissing Kelce, whatever the hell it was called. He was a completely different person. He made Travis Kelce who he is now, okay? He never had the best defense. He had one of statistically the worst defenses when he won the first Super Bowl, okay? All he did was beat teams with better rosters in the Super Bowl, but he was the best player on the field, which trumped everything. So in that ilk, in that light, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben, wayside. Patrick Mahomes leaps them. And I don't think, like, Aaron Rodgers maybe like physically the best quarterback we've seen, arm talent, like accuracy, things like that. But he folded like Peyton Manning did a lot in the playoffs. Now, Peyton Manning still would be ahead of Patrick Mahomes. I think Peyton Manning is the second best quarterback we've ever seen. Aside from Tom Brady, just because of his acumen and what he did at the line. He changed football in that way also. But yes, I think Patrick Mahomes won't be looked at as the greatest because I think it's way too early. But he'll be in second or third alone, and all the older guys will be behind him.
Yeah, I think it vaults him up. Me personally, I mean, we could get into our top 5 list sometime in the offseason, of course. But for me, I would have Patrick Mahomes as the 3rd best quarterback ever, behind Tom Brady and behind Joe Montana if he wins this Super Bowl. I would have Peyton Manning and John Elway as my next 2. Again, we can get into our top 5 list, whatever. But I think this puts Patrick Mahomes getting that 3rd Super Bowl. It puts him above a lot of these guys who we consider all-time greats. Like you said, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben, Eli Manning, jokes aside, we'll talk about Eli here in a second, but I want to use that as a transition because I think we're on the same page with Mahomes. It'll take him to an elite level above a ton of guys who we just saw be greats over the last 20 years. Maybe won't put him above the top of the top just because he needs more time. But I want to flip over to Brock Purdy. And it's a simple question. If Brock Purdy wins this Super Bowl, is he going to be grouped with Eli Manning, maybe Joe Flacco, Nick Foles, guys who really get credit for what they've done? Or is he going to be looked at as a Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson? Because even the way that we discuss a Nick Foles and a Joe Flacco is different from the way that we discuss a Trent Dilfer and a Brad Johnson. Which group, if you had to pick, would you put Brock Purdy in if he wins this Super Bowl?
First of all, massive disrespect to Joe Flacco comparing him to Nick Foles. Okay? What Nick Foles did.
They both got hot in the playoffs and went
No. Nick Foles was terrible in Kansas City. He was terrible in Jacksonville. He had one good year in Philly, and he was in Chicago. He played bad football for 80% of his career. 1 year in Philly when Michael Vick got hurt, I think, and those 8 games and 9 games at the end of the season. He was a slumdog millionaire, 1 in a million. When they made that run and beat Tom Brady and they put up a 50 burger against that defense. Stop it. Joe Flacco was an MVP caliber guy for a handful of years there. He won playoff games. He had a great playoff record. And to answer your question, I think it's doing a disservice to Brock Purdy to group him in with the others. None of those guys, Nick Foles, Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer, ever had the numbers and the efficiency that Brock Purdy had this year. Like at some point, people are going to have to become believers. I'm there. I think I was with everybody else thinking like it was a sham or it was a one-time thing last year. All he's done is lead this team to be the best team in the NFC. They had a down 3 weeks. Would they lose 3 in a row?
Right.
But listen, all this dude has done has punched the time clock and done his job to the best of his ability, better than the majority of quarterbacks this year. So I think we're going to look at Brock Purdy and be asking 5 years from now, who is most like Brock Purdy, who's in the smack dab middle. This is unprecedented, uncharted waters where Mr. Irrelevant is now leading a team to a Super Bowl, regardless of the talent, irrespective of it. He did it. We're not talking about him not doing it with the talent. We're talking about him doing it with the talent. And the reason they have the talent is because they're paying him $11 a year.
Right, 100%.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of not
know what
either.
you mean, but you know how you have the saying, it's Patrick Mahomes until it isn't?
Yeah.
For better or for worse, it's not Brock Purdy until it is for me.
Right.
And I'm sorry, if he wins, I'm going to look at him as a Trent Dilfer. I'm going to look at him as a Brad Johnson that wasn't as talented as a lot of the other quarterbacks in the league, but steered the ship. And to me, they still get their credit. They're Super Bowl winning quarterbacks who deserve credit for steering the ship and driving the Lamborghini and getting it to the finish line on time. But I would need to see more from Brock Purdy before I would be willing to put him in the Joe Flacco, Eli Manning conversation of guys who maybe aren't the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL, in the league, but still were good leaders who got the job done. I think that everyone in the conversation deserves their respect at the end of the day for getting it done. But I can't get there with Brock Purdy right now. If he goes out and he balls out and he is one of the main reasons why they win the game, then certainly the conversation will change and I'll atone next week when we have our discussion here. But for right now, I would say Mahomes isn't the GOAT, even if he wins. I think we agree there. And I would say that Brock Purdy is more of a Dilfer, Brad Johnson, and you see him more as a Flacco, Eli Manning type. And I think that's perfectly fair too.
I have a different name for you. And it's not stature. It's not anything like that. Big Ben. And go with me here, okay? Ben Roethlisberger completed like 13 passes the first time they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay? He was gifted into something else. Okay. The best defense in the NFL and Jerome Bettis. Right. Okay?
He grew into being a good player who's worthy of the respect. So I see what you're saying.
So it's an elevated, so there's game manager, which every great quarterback is also. But you also have the flash and you have the arm strength and everything. Big Ben may be the best game manager we've ever seen, who completely revolutionized himself by being this massive passer when they brought in Antonio Brown and had Mike Wallace and Emmanuel Sanders and Heath Miller. They had that high-powered offense, Willie Parker. They had guys. And Le'Veon Bell. But at his core, Big Ben may be the ceiling for Brock Purdy, which I think would be pretty good because it's kind of right in the middle. Yeah, not a game manager, has elite talent, but not in the package that you're used to seeing it in.
Yeah, I think that that's a ceiling, at least from an accomplishment standpoint, that would make sense. But with that being said, let's get away from the quarterbacks here. Who are the top 5 position players in this Super Bowl? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Number 1, the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives, great escapes. It's got class exclusive Google built in, which is always updating, and you can call on it for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, the Google Play Store are all built right in to a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. You can also check out the 2024 Nissan Armada. It's going to change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, NFL fans, we're going to continue a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. The Super Bowl is on Sunday. We're going to be diving into our predictions for what happens in that game to cap things off. Before we get into it, though, I do want to thank you guys for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, NFL content all year round. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On NFL podcast. But now, we've talked quarterbacks. It's time to dive into the rest of the players. And I thought it would be an interesting exercise to go through our top 5 players in the Super Bowl that aren't quarterbacks. Alex, we're going to have dueling lists here. I'm not expecting us to agree, but I'll let you go first. Who is your number one best player in this Super Bowl outside of Patrick Mahomes is going to be number 1. We talked Brock Purdy. Keep it to position players. Your number 1 position player in this Super Bowl.
What position? Are you saying skill position? Are you saying any
position
of them?
On the field? Any position that is not quarterback. You can pick anything on offense, anything on defense. Who's the best player in this Super Bowl that's not a quarterback?
Trent Williams.
Okay.
And it's not like, it could be a passer, it could be Fred Warner, it could be Nick Bosa, it could be anybody, Travis Kelce. This offense doesn't work without Trent Williams.
Right.
Doesn't matter who they have. The right side of the line is suspect. They lost 3 games. I think he was out for all 3, if not 2 of the 3. I think Debo was out also. Trent Williams may be the best non-quarterback in the NFL. And he constantly gets like him at 6'7", 1,000,000 pounds with fleet of foot can run like a 4.6 probably still.
And a nasty
in his later ages.
Man.
The dude is the metronome for this offense. And I know that's a little off kilter. It's like, okay, fine. You want to talk skill position, running back, wide receiver, tight end?
No, let's respect the guys up front. I like that.
I think Trent Williams is the best non-quarterback playing in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going with Travis Kelce. I think that, Travis Kelce had a little bit of a down year statistically. Obviously, he's getting up there in age in his mid-30s. But I think when the chips are down, when the money's on the line, as we saw throughout the playoffs, Travis Kelce's going to come up big. And I think if we look back and there's a person who wins MVP that isn't Patrick Mahomes, I think it could be Travis Kelce. Now, Mahomes would have to not go if Mahomes had 225 and 2 touchdowns on, 22 completions, and Kelce has 7 catches for 120 yards and both the touchdowns. I think it would go to Travis Kelce at that moment in time. So I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. But what I will say is, my number 2 is Trent Williams. So I don't think that you're crazy for that. Trent Williams is the second best player for me. I think Kelce is, all-time top 2, top 3 tight ends of all time. And I think Trent Williams has a chance to be considered one of the top 3 offensive tackles of all time, especially if they win this Super Bowl. Having a Super Bowl on your resume, a Super Bowl win, absolutely huge for legacy and the way that people view your career. So I don't think you're crazy. I would go with Trent Williams at number 2. Who would be your number 2, though?
Christian McCaffrey. I would take Christian McCaffrey over Travis Kelce. I mean, the reason why is Christian McCaffrey doesn't need somebody to throw him the ball to be effective.
Right.
And Christian McCaffrey still stacked boxes pretty much every snap he's on the field, unless they're in shotgun or third and long or whatever it is circumstantially, situationally. He still produces 4 or 5 yards a carry. He's been durable all year, except for, little hobbles that didn't keep him out of games. Like, the dude is the bet. Like, I don't want to speak in platitudes, but I mean, he could be the best running back, like, when his career is done, since LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yes.
Like, the dude is absolutely, unadulteratedly the best player that I've seen. Like, it's just what he does with his strength and his ability to catch 7 or 8 balls and still get yardage. And everybody knows he's getting the ball 30 times a game. That's the toughest thing. We have 11 guys on the other side of the field that planned for an entire week to stop you, and you're still getting 150 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns a game. It's
every game.
You can't even argue it. So
he's the poster boy for the modern running back to me. He is, when you think about what you want in a running back in today's NFL, you think of Christian McCaffrey. Like everyone, like Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit, he had a great playoff, really came on at the end of the year. He's a guy who can do that. Every team now is looking for a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and make plays, who can also, it reminds me of Marshall Faulk. He's like the best running back like that since Marshall Faulk. You put LaDainian Tomlinson in there, that's my favorite running back of all time, personally, so I'm biased there. But Marshall Faulk is a guy who I think Christian McCaffrey is most like if we go back in recent NFL history. And I agree with you there. I'm going to have Christian McCaffrey as my number 3 as well. Number 4, though, I'm going to the defensive side of the ball. So, well, let me say this. Your number 3, Travis Kelce, at that point, are you putting him there or are you going somewhere else?
With importance, it's like, and listen, I'm not saying this to be different or anything like that. Like, I think that Fred Warner is the absolute, scariest off-ball linebacker that we have. Like, he's taken over from Bobby Wagner. We talked about this 2 seasons ago when he got his contract extension. It's like he's been handed the reins from Bobby Wagner, even though Bobby Wagner made another Pro Bowl. Like, you have Fred
Luke
Warner,
Kuechly, Bobby Wagner. Fred Warner.
Absolutely. And I would say Fred Warner, the best, especially for impact on a game. I would say Fred Warner is the 3rd best. But it's close. You can put any of these guys in any different order. But I think Fred Warner is the guy.
I'm showing my lean football philosophy wise. Number 1, Travis Kelce. Number 2, Trent Williams. Number 3, Christian McCaffrey. For me, my final 2 guys are defensive linemen, pass rushers. I'm going to go with Chris Jones at number 4 and Nick Bosa at number 5. Now, I would have number 6. Fred Warner would be my number 6 guy, but pass rush is so key to me, and it's going to be so big in this game with both quarterbacks able to make some plays with their legs. So to round out my top 5 and kind of finish off, I got Travis Kelce, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Chris Jones, Nick Bosa. So you could cap off yours now with the time.
And I'll do Travis Kelce and Chris Jones 4-5.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, and listen, this could all go. This isn't Nick Bosa, dude. I mean, we didn't talk about Chartavius Ward. We didn't talk about, we didn't talk about
L'Jarius
so many guys. L'Jarius Sneed,
Brandon Ayuk,
so many different
Samuel,
guys.
George Kittle.
I know, dude. Put it this way: as we transition here over to give our actual predictions in our last segment before the actual Super Bowl, it's gonna be good no matter what. Both these teams don't piss people off enough to be. There's one villain and one that everybody's rooting for. There's so many different storylines. We'll hit them all next. We roll on here. Locked on NFL Thursday. Our predictions next. But first, this episode of Locked on NFL Thursday is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this. Now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from another retirement account with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA are available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SPIC, is a registered broker-dealer. Second before the Super Bowl, man. If you didn't listen to Tyler and myself say appreciate football before the season started, tough cookies because it's almost over. Follow him at Tic Tac Titans on Twitter, Locked on Titans, Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals, at Clancy's Corner on Twitter. We make up Locked on NFL Thursday. Thanks for hanging out with us, everydayers who've been with us all week. For the last, what is it? Was this our fourth season?
I think season? Third.
Yeah. Sweet mother. Hope here's the 10 more. Okay, Super Bowl predictions. As we were going to break, I mentioned very rarely are there so many storylines that it doesn't matter who wins. In that instance, where it's okay, so if this happens, then it'll be good. But if it doesn't happen, then the game's going to suck. It's it doesn't matter. This is popcorn viewing. This is trophy wife / trophy husband versus girl / guy next door who happens to be a trophy wife and trophy husband with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be so much fun to watch. Prediction wise, I'm going to go first because I'm selfish. Okay. Because this is burying the lead, but we've only got 7 minutes anyways. It's Patrick Mahomes until it's not. And I don't understand why we still have to see him as an underdog. I think Vegas is hedging a little bit because if you gave the 49ers are very good. Maybe talent-wise, the best 1-53 that we've seen in a decade, especially with Brock Purdy's emergence, actually being a Pro Bowl quarterback.
100%.
But it's Patrick Mahomes and it's Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco's really came into play. I said this last week I said this 2 weeks ago before the conference championship game where I picked the Chiefs to win. And I wasn't,
and I was wrong.
Unequivocally,
yes.
This is the Tom Brady year. Running back, LeGarrette Blount, James White, tight end, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, defense, and quarterback. So I'm taking them. I think it's going to be close. I hope it comes down to the last possession for all of us. But I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to throw 3 touchdowns. He's going to throw for over 300 yards. Travis Kelce is going to have a touchdown or 2 over 100 yards, 10 receptions, and they're going to win.
Yeah, listen, a little clairvoyant Clancy appearance on the show earlier because you said earlier that Patrick Mahomes has beat better teams in the Super Bowl because he's just so good. At the end of the day, he's just so good. And this year, he actually has the best defense that he's ever had in a Super Bowl. So if you already, Patrick Mahomes was able to beat people without the better defense, without the better team. Well, this time he may not have the better roster from 1-53, but with the way they've played in the playoffs, at least, the Chiefs have been the better defense. And if he's got a better defense and himself, there's no way. I made the mistake of betting against Patrick Mahomes last week. I thought that they would beat Buffalo, but, for people out there who love the movie Hook like I do, I doubted the captain, put me in the boo-boo box. All right, that's what I deserve. I'm not doing it again. I'm with you. I think the Chiefs win this game, and it is insane to me that the Chiefs are still underdogs on FanDuel. How? 1.5-point underdogs. I just don't understand. When the opening line came out on FanDuel, the Chiefs were getting 3. I hammered it. I think a lot of people hammered it, which makes me nervous, though. And Mahomes has won a ton. He won last year. Odds are that he loses, but I just can't bring myself to do it after what we've seen. To me, I'm going with the Chiefs. I think the game is 30-24. I think the 49ers have a chance to win it at the end, and Brock Purdy throws an interception to lose them the game. So 30-24, Kansas City Chiefs is my official prediction. I know you said you think the Chiefs win, but what's your final score prediction?
I know that, what is the over-under, 45, 46? I think that, the first quarter.
It's dropped a couple of points, though.
Yeah. First quarters of Super Bowls are usually pretty tight.
Scoring.
And also, who's the referee or the umpire that's reffing this game It's 80% of the time it goes under or something like that. 70% of the time it goes under. I'm taking the Chiefs. I think it'll be like 27-24. And it's going to, it could be who comes down to it, who has the ball late, and it's, Harrison Butker for a field goal at the end. Here's the thing. And another thing that I was right about, let's just pat me on the back here. I did say Travis Kelce, 10 receptions, over 100 yards, and a touchdown against Baltimore. That was the easiest cash I've ever had in my life.
Listen,
if Baltimore's defense can't do it, San Francisco's defense ain't going to be able to do it either. It doesn't matter. San Francisco's defense hasn't played fantastically down the stretch. They were lucky that Detroit just fell on their faces in the second half of that game 2 weeks ago. So, Tyler, I'm going to ask because I'm assuming you're going to ask, so I'm just going to take it. Who wins MVP?
Okay, so I'm gonna bet with my heart. I do want to say this: the line has gone back up for the Chiefs from +1.5 to +2.5 now. Which anything under 3, I don't even care about that. But either way, that's what it is, and it's over under 47.5 is where it's at right now as of this recording on FanDuel. So check that out if you're interested. For me, and I'm lucky enough to have gone on FanDuel and got this for plus 11,000. I bet $10. I'm going to be a thousandaire.
Sam Darnold?
Game. Isaiah Pacheco.
Okay.
The 49ers have struggled stopping the run. And I think that in a game where you have a good defense and San Francisco has a good pass rush and some good pass defense players, I think if you line up and you run the ball down their throat, I think Pacheco can go over 120 total yards. If he scores 2 touchdowns just because they get close, they're down at the sideline, catches a couple passes, say he gets 95 rushing yards, 25 receiving yards, scores 2 touchdowns. I think we have seen in some of these games where these quarterbacks who have multiple championships, they have multiple Super Bowl MVPs like Tom Brady. Sometimes their running backs win it because it just turns out that the running back gets the scores instead of the throws. I think Isaiah Pacheco is the Super Bowl MVP and the Chiefs win.
That's good. I like it. I think it's going to be difficult for Patrick Mahomes to win it because, here's the thing. It's not going to be 75 yards for Rashee Rice and 75 yards for Travis Kelce. He's going to find one guy, and he's just going to exploit the hell out of it all game.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So, with Travis Kelce, it's like, okay, so say you pick between Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. If it's going to be the throwing way, it's like, okay.
Right.
Rashee Rice may be the better value because he could 100% go 8 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. We have no idea what it's going to be. I mean, the only receiver that you kind of just rule out is MVS, and then everybody else is those 2 guys. It's interesting. Because I think the Chiefs are going to win. That Pacheco one's really interesting. I think Kelce's plus 1,700 or was. I'm assuming that number will go down a little bit because it's going to be very favorable as we get closer to the game. But I think Travis Kelce has the best chance. Patrick Mahomes would have to throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers, and Isaiah Pacheco would not be getting in the end zone. So, I think Travis Kelce's the guy. Now,
media loves narratives, man. That's one thing that we have to remember is the people who vote on who will be the Super Bowl MVP, they love a narrative. And giving it to Patrick Mahomes, again, doesn't establish anything interesting, doesn't establish anything to write about. But look, Travis Kelce, on the other hand, with the Taylor Swift involvement, had to get her name in once here before the end of the show, of course, to annoy everybody. But I think with all of that, Kelce makes a ton of sense as a guy that they would give the MVP to. And then he proposes to Taylor Swift on the field. He gets 2 rings on the night, and we all go home happy.
Stop it. How much does that ring have to be? To impress her. You could probably buy her an $8 ring and she'd be happy.
Yeah, what if it's a ring pop? He gets on one knee and it's just a ring pop and a thing. I did that for prom one time in high school. But now we're off the rails. With that being said, we'll be back next week to break down everything that happened, update you guys on all the latest in the NFL. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert for Locked On Titans. For my co-host, Alex Clancy, host and local expert of Locked On Cardinals. That is going to do it for us today. As I tell you guys every week, start your weekend early and stay safe out there.
Appreciate it.